I don't know. Like at this point I'm asking myself, like, why wouldn't you go this route?
Well, the answer is weight. So I put a picture up on Instagram a couple of weeks ago of this MOSAIC bike when I first got it. And I said, hey guys, I've got this bike. What do you want to know about it? And about 80% of the replies were, how much does the bike weigh and what is it like to climb on? A lot of my training recently has been interval rep climbing, and I've got this back catalogue of climbing data using the Factor. So switch it out for the MOSAIC and find out how it climbs against those Factor times on my local climbs. The climbs that I've been using for my training are Bobbin Head West and the Brooklyn climbs. Guys, both these climbs are around 3 or 4Ks long at an average gradient of 5 to 6%. These are the sort of climbs that you will find yourself on local bunch rides out with your mates. You want to know, if you go and buy a titanium bike, is it going to hold you back on these climbs? Well, let's find out. Let me explain what you are looking at here. So we've got about 25 reps of this climb split across the two bikes. And you can see that I've divided it into the reps that I was doing at 340 to 350 and then 360 to 370. Obviously, there's more reps in the slightly lower wattage. And at that slightly lower wattage, very little difference. At the higher wattage, you're seeing close to 5 to 6 seconds difference across the reps. Interestingly enough, the MOSAIC did the fastest time up the climb and the Factor did the slowest time. At that higher wattage, to have that difference is quite substantial given it's less time, and to have more difference is a bigger percentage. Next up is another Sydney classic. This one is the Brooklyn climb. It's a slightly longer climb, but not as steep as Bobbin Head. It's one of the best training climbs going around, but it's not one that I've ridden as many times as Bobbin. Again, splitting it into these brackets, we've got the 320 to 330 bunch and the 340 to 350 bunch. Lower wattage because of a longer climb. If we look at that lower wattage, 10 seconds difference on average, and at the higher wattage, this one really surprised me, especially with the MOSAIC doing the fastest time on the 4th of January, and the highest power, the 29th of December, didn't actually result in the fastest time. Far from it, I was almost 15 seconds off on the Factor that day. Anytime people do comparison videos, it's very easy to just start picking apart the myriad of issues, the myriad of contradictions, the myriad of condition changes that will ultimately have probably affected these results. I am not GCN. I don't have a team of people around me to help me do this. I had a heap of interest in finding out the results for myself. I wanted to know what was the difference between riding this bizarre material around my local climbs against Pro Peloton Speed Machine, which I have sat in front of you and said is a great fast race bike. The differences between all these things really aren't that much anyway. And we're kind of just being hoodwinked into all of it, which is probably where my brain is at the moment.
So I brought the Factor back out today, just as I was almost like at a crisis of what's going on with these times. I'm just repping it again, 350, I'm at 360. They are bang on.
I do want to carry this video on with a couple more thoughts on these titanium bikes, because that's not the full story. The next thing I want to talk about is this, what do we call it? The vibe that seems to exist about titanium bikes when it comes to the ride quality, right? You've all heard it before. I saw it in the comments when I asked the question. Oh, Chris, I bet it's a buttery, smooth, beautiful, magic carpet experience to ride this bike. No, not at all. It feels like a race bike. And I know at this point I can very quickly go down this rabbit hole of stiffness versus compliance. There's a great video by Pete Talks, and he talks about some of the stiffness ratios and all that kind of stuff when it comes to the actual material titanium. And that's been my experience. My experience getting on this bike.
Another rep, another dead heat. Yeah, conditions today are almost identical to New Year's Eve when I was out here, and it's at 9:01, 9:02 again, which was what the Factor was doing.
Having said all that, there is one test that I don't know how to perform.
Guys, what I was really wanting to dive into here is a really subjective thing. And let me explain it like this. So this climb particularly starts just like this. Sort of bumpy, rough kind of roads like that. And what I find on the Factor, and it's probably the only bike that I've ridden recently, it's given me this sensation, is that in 1 or 2 pedal strokes, I will feel speed immediately. And it kind of inspires me then to maintain the effort. And it's like, oh, going super fast. This is sick. I'm going to maintain my effort and do a good interval. All right. So I bail on a lot of stuff, you know. So I was really conscious of that today. What did those first pedal strokes feel like? And what I would describe it, again, this is purely subjective. I'm so sorry. But instead of it being 1, 2 pedal strokes, it was 3 or 4. 3 or 4 to get that similar speed. Now 3, 4 pedal strokes is still fantastic. Absolutely blew me away. I was not expecting that. So that's my takeaway, really. I'm trying to think, am I describing acceleration? Is that what I'm referring to? Potentially it is.
My plan is to race this bike in some of the crits around Sydney early this year, maybe get a feel for it there, get a feel if it is jumping, if I can jump across to gaps and all that kind of stuff in it. I know so much of that is down to your legs. It's not really down to the bike, but I definitely feel that is an area that I've left untested. So the last comment that I have on these bikes is I saw this comment or this question appear a few times, right? And it was, why does this bike exist, Chris? Like, why should I even consider getting a bike that is essentially always going to be heavier than my carbon race bike? Why would I even bother? It's not going to be that much cheaper, okay? It's not. And it's a bloody good question. And I should say that I, again, don't have any skin in this game. This is not my bike. It's been an opportunity for me to ride it. And I have called it a custom bike, but it's not custom for me. And I think that is in part one of the reasons why you would consider this bike.
Like much of anything to do with bikes at the moment, I think it really comes down to your local experience. Like Jesse and I talked about on the Nero Show about how obviously Trek's doing well, but Trek's doing well where there's really great local retailers. And I think the same is true for this and this experience. Like if you have someone like a Felicia at Cycling Projects who will do the whole custom experience with you and you can kind of go on that journey, then yeah, I reckon there's massive gains to just your whole riding experience. But if this is just you looking for an internet bike and wanting to email someone to buy a bike, I don't think this is for you. This is more, I know this sounds lame, but this is more about the experience and the journey of doing it.
Titanium is a metal that is used in planes, it's in spacecrafts, it's on satellites, it's used to graft bone. Why am I saying all that? It's because if you find a good frame builder with titanium, they can build you your perfect geometry. Which leads me to my last point on these bikes, right? Okay, so I said this with the Factor that it's a machine that makes me go faster, and that's my only attachment to it. This bike is completely the opposite. I look at this bike, I jump on this bike, and I immediately have an affinity to it, and it's not even mine. And I think the reason is, I thought a lot about this, I think the reason is the material. That material, you look at it and it looks like craftsmanship. I know this is sad, but you look at it and you go, yeah, that's the kind of thing that's been used to build a plane. And now I'm sitting on it. Guys, again, no skin in this game, but I really hope you found that interesting. I certainly did. As always, I really hope you enjoyed this video, got something out of it, and hopefully I'll see you next on the videos or in the Nero Show.